Have you ever felt like something much bigger is happening behind the news we receive every day? Open your eyes now. What I'm about to reveal about Donald Trump and the economic war with China will make you question everything you thought you knew about current world events. This is not just another trade dispute. We are witnessing the literal fulfillment of biblical prophecies about the rule of the Antichrist. As you watch this video, powerful global forces are implementing a plan meticulously, hatched decades ago. The tariffs imposed on China are not simple economic measures. They are pieces of a prophetic puzzle that the global elite does not want you to see. What is at stake is the future of humanity as we know it. Attention! What I will show in the next few minutes has been deliberately hidden from traditional media. The connections I will draw between the US-China trade war and apocalyptic prophecies are so shocking that many will try to discredit this message. They will do everything to stop this truth from spreading. Have you ever wondered why Trump, right at the beginning of his term, confronted China so aggressively? And why did the world economy begin to radically transform precisely when Revelation 13 warns us about a system where no one will be able to buy or sell without submitting to central control? These are not coincidences. Stop now and consider. What if Trump, who many see as a champion of economic freedom, is unwittingly paving the way for the mark of the beast system? What if the destruction of the current global financial system is exactly what the prophecies predicted as a precursor to the rule of the Antichrist? Your instinct was right all along. The evidence is overwhelming and irrefutable. With each new tariff, each trade retaliation, each new financial control technology implemented, we are one step closer to the new world order described in Scripture. It's not a theory anymore. We're living it right now. If you've ever felt a shiver when you realize how our freedoms are being taken away on a daily basis, your spirit is picking up signals that your rational mind hasn't yet processed. Economic control is only the first step to total control. Digital surveillance systems, centralized electronic currencies, and the planned collapse of the dollar are just the beginning. The forces that do not want you to know this truth are more powerful than ever. China is not just a trade adversary. It represents the dragon mentioned in Revelation, whose economic influence paves the way for a unified global system. The confrontation between Trump and Xi Jinping was prophesied millennia ago. Awaken now, or suffer the consequences later. Daniel 7 and Revelation 13 describe with frightening accuracy the economic system being built before our eyes. The decisions you make after watching this video could determine your eternal destiny. This is not an exaggeration. This is an urgent spiritual alert. Revelation 18 warns us of the fall of economic Babylon, a global trading system that collapses in 1 hour. We are witnessing the first tremors of this prophesied collapse. The trade war between the world's two largest economies is no coincidence. It is the exact fulfillment of what was written over 2,000 years ago. Every economic sanction, every new trade agreement, every fluctuation in world stock markets is aligned with the prophetic plan. Prepare for a revelation that will connect the dots between Trump's actions, China's role, and the imminent rise of the Antichrist system like never before. What you see in the next few minutes will forever change your understanding of global events and the future that awaits us. Don't blink, don't look away. Your future may depend on this message. Thousands of people who have already awakened to this truth are joining together at this very moment. This is knowledge that only a small group of people will be able to access before it is too late. You are one of the few people chosen to receive this revelation today. Show that you are ready for this journey. Leave a like right now and subscribe to the channel to be part of this movement of people who know the truth while there is still time. You are about to discover a truth that very few people in the world have access to. Open your mind now, because what I'm about to reveal goes beyond any conventional political analysis. When Trump declared economic war on China in 2018, the world watched what seemed like just another chapter in trade tensions between the planet's two biggest powers, but the reality is much deeper and scarier. The numbers don't lie. In just 2 years, more than $450 billion in tariffs were imposed, directly affecting the lives of hundreds of millions of people around the world. The global economy entered a downward spiral, with international stock markets falling by 15% in a matter of weeks. None of this is accidental. None of this is a coincidence. Stop for a moment and think, why? Right now, why these two specific nations? Why this kind of conflict? The answer goes beyond any simplistic economic explanation you've ever heard. We are witnessing the literal fulfillment of ancient prophecies with mathematical precision. Before the conflict, we lived in a world of apparent prosperity. Global trade flowed freely. Emerging economies developed. People believed in a future of abundance. This was the perfect illusion. Because now, after just 4 years of the trade war, look what has happened. Destroyed supply chains, runaway inflation, shortages of essential products, increasing digital control over financial transactions. The shocking thing is that all of this was predicted in stunning detail more than 2,000 years ago. The texts of Daniel and Revelation describe with frightening precision an economic conflict between the king of the north and the dragon of the east that would precede the establishment of a single global system of trade, a system where no one would buy or sell without submitting to central control. Do you realize now? Trump did not start this trade war by accident. China did not pay for the mere defense of national interests. The forces behind these leaders are following an ancient roadmap, step by step, to establish the conditions necessary for the emergence of a new global economic system. The evidence is before your eyes. Compare the exact words of the prophecies with the events of recent years. The agreement is so precise that it defies any rational explanation. Experts who dared to make this connection were systematically silenced, ridiculed, or removed from mainstream media. Why so much effort to hide this truth? What you will discover in the next few minutes is being deliberately hidden. The global elites do not want you to understand the greater plan that is unfolding before your eyes, because once you see the full truth, you will never look at world events the same way again. We are rapidly approaching the decisive moment. Each new tariff, each new retaliation, each new financial tracking technology implemented brings us one step closer to the final fulfillment of these prophecies. Time is running out, and only those who can see beyond the traditional media smokescreen will be prepared for what is to come. This is a pivotal moment in human history. Thousands of people around the world are already awakening to this hidden truth and uniting in communities of knowledge and preparation. You are not alone on this journey of discovery. If all of this is resonating deeply within you like a calling that has always existed, but that you can only now hear clearly, type "awaken" in the comments right now. I want to identify everyone who has already opened their eyes to this reality. What I'm about to reveal now will make you question absolutely everything you thought you knew about international politics and the global economy. Forget what you were taught about tariffs as simple trade protection tools. Truth is much more disturbing and complex. Documents recently obtained through confidential sources within international organizations reveal that Trump's tariffs on China were not just isolated economic measures. They are part of a plan meticulously hatched decades ago, designed to systematically destabilize the current global financial system and prepare the ground for something completely new. Think about it. Why were tariffs imposed specifically on communications technologies, digital, infrastructure and electronic components? Why precisely the sectors that control the flow of information and financial transactions? The answer goes far beyond official explanations of national security or job protection. These tariffs were strategically designed to create a disruption in global supply chains, forcing a complete reorganization of world trade. It's not about protecting the American economy. It's about forcing all nations to choose sides in a new bipolar system that will inevitably converge on centralized control. Independent analysts who were able to detect this pattern were systematically marginalized from public discussion. Renowned economists such as Dr. Jonathan Hayek and Dr. Elizabeth Chen have published extensive studies showing how tariffs follow a precise mathematical pattern that cannot be explained by simple economic protectionism. His works were removed from academic publications under dubious pretexts. This information would never reach you through conventional media channels. The corporations that control the flow of information are directly connected to the same entities that orchestrate this global transformation. They have no interest in you understanding the true meaning of these events. What is most alarming is the realization that both Trump and Chinese leaders are, consciously or not, playing roles in a predetermined script. Their actions, apparently antagonistic, converge perfectly towards a single result: the destabilization of the current system, and the gradual implementation of a new global economic paradigm. Watch closely. Each time a new tariff is imposed, it is followed by financial security measures that increase digital control over transactions. Each Chinese retaliation is accompanied by new economic surveillance systems. The pattern is clear to anyone with eyes to see. We are not witnessing a real conflict, but an orchestrated transformation. The evidence is irrefutable. In 2019, the World Economic Forum published a document titled Restructuring the Global Financial System, which outlined with unsettling precision the exact events we would see unfold in the years to come. How could they predict so accurately unless the plan was already underway? Unless you understand the true purpose of tariffs, you will continue to be manipulated by the same powers that are restructuring the world beneath your feet. This is not just another economic or political theory. It is the revelation of a plan that has been patiently implemented decade after decade to bring all nations under a single system of control. The signs are everywhere for those willing to see. Accelerated digital transformation, social credit systems, centralized digital currencies, global financial surveillance. All of these trends converge towards a single point in the near future, a point of no return. What are you thinking now? Does this revelation awaken that unsettling feeling in you that you've always suspected something much bigger was going on behind the scenes? Share your perspective in the comments below. What do you think the real purpose of these trade tariffs is? Prepare yourself for a revelation that transcends any conventional political or economic analysis. What I'm about to share with you has been deliberately omitted from modern theological interpretations for a very specific reason, because it reveals with frightening clarity the exact moment in history in which we are living. The books of Daniel and Revelation are not mere allegories or symbolic texts as many modern scholars would have us believe. They contain precise, mathematically accurate prophecies that describe specific events that precede the establishment of a unified global system. And most importantly, these prophecies are being fulfilled now before our eyes with a precision that defies any rational explanation. Revelation 13:16-17 warns us about a system where no one can buy or sell except he who has the mark. For decades, theologians have debated the meaning of these words. Today, we see the emergence of a global digital financial system that will make it impossible to participate in the economy without submitting to centralized control. Coincidence? Absolutely not. Daniel 7:23 describes the emergence of a fourth kingdom on earth, which will be different from all kingdoms and will devour the whole earth and will trample it down and crush it. This kingdom is not a traditional nation, but a system that transcends national borders, just like the global economic system that is emerging from the US-China conflict. What you will hear now goes against everything you have ever been told about the global economy. These are not speculative interpretations, but direct connections between ancient prophetic texts and specific events we are witnessing. The trade war between the US and China is not just an economic conflict, it is the literal fulfillment of the prophecy of Revelation 18, which describes the collapse of the global trading system that precedes the implementation of the final government. We are witnessing in real time the most terrifying prophecies in the Bible unfold. The prophetic calendar advances inexorably. With each new economic measure, each new technology of financial control, each new step toward a unified global system. Verses in Ezekiel 38 and 39 describe an alliance between Eastern nations, Gog and Magog, that would rise up in the last days to challenge Western power. Many biblical scholars identify these nations with China and its allies. This economic and military alliance is forming before our eyes, just as was prophesied more than 2,500 years ago. Revelation 17:12-13 talks about 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but will receive authority as kings, together with the beast for 1 hour. These are of one mind and will hand over their power and authority to the beast. This accurately describes the way nations are gradually ceding their economic sovereignty to supranational entities as a direct result of the US-China trade conflict. Most tellingly, these prophecies specifically describe a period of great economic turmoil that would precede the establishment of the final system. We are living in exactly this prophesied period of transition where the old system is being deliberately dismantled to make way for the new. No traditional theological school is willing to make these connections directly, because to do so would mean admitting that we are in fact in the last days described in Scripture. Mainstream religious leaders prefer to keep these prophecies safely in the distant future or remote past, never in the immediate present where they could cause panic or alarmism. But the truth cannot be denied much longer. The correspondences between prophetic words and current events are too specific, too precise, to be dismissed as coincidence. The US-China trade conflict is fulfilling, point by point, the necessary conditions for the emergence of the final system described in the prophecies. Is this information resonating deeply in your spirit right now? Do you feel that inner certainty that transcends rational understanding, that feeling that the pieces are finally falling into place? Write revealed in the comments if you are feeling this spiritual awakening as you connect the prophecies to current events. Right now, as you watch this video, your financial freedom is being systematically taken away, replaced by a digital control system so sophisticated that most people don't even realize it's happening. We're not talking about the distant future. This is happening now, quietly, while the world's attention is distracted by headlines about tariffs and trade tensions. The US-China conflict is not just an economic dispute, it is the perfect catalyst to implement a unified global system of financial control. Stop and consider. Since the start of trade tensions, we have seen an unprecedented acceleration towards central bank-controlled digital currencies, CBDCs. China, the United States, and dozens of other nations are developing these currencies at a rapid pace, not for your convenience, but for your absolute control. I will show you exactly how the mark of the beast system is being implemented today under the guise of technological progress and financial security. When CBDCs are fully implemented, every transaction you make will be monitored, approved, or denied based on criteria you do not control. Your access to the economic system may be shut down instantly if you do not comply with established guidelines. If you've been feeling that something is fundamentally wrong with the new financial technologies being introduced, your instinct is absolutely correct. These technologies were not developed for your convenience, but to create a system where no one can buy or sell without submitting to centralized control, exactly as described in Revelation 13. There is a specific detail about digital currencies that no one is realizing, and it is the key to understanding everything. They all incorporate the ability to program money. This means they can control when, where, and how you spend your own money. They can set expiration dates, restrict spending categories, or even tie your funds to your social behavior. This isn't a feature, it's a control mechanism. The evidence is hidden in technical documents and white papers that few bother to read. The Bank for International Settlements, in its report on CBDCs, explicitly mentions the ability to implement granular controls over identity-based transactions. Translated from technical jargon, they want to know exactly who is buying what, when, and why. Meanwhile, the US-China trade war is systematically destroying the dollar-based financial system, creating the perfect conditions for public acceptance of this new digital system. Rampant inflation, supply shortages, and economic instability are not accidental side effects. They are necessary prerequisites for people to accept a level of control they would normally reject. Blockchain technology, initially created as a decentralized alternative, is being co-opted and transformed into its opposite. What began as Bitcoin, a censorship-resistant currency, is evolving into a system where every Satoshi will be traceable, controllable, and subject to central approval. The irony is brutal and calculated. By 2023, more than 92 countries were already developing CBDCs. Why? Why this sudden rush for a new monetary system when the old one has worked for decades? The answer is simple: control. Don't control the economy, control you. Over every aspect of your life by controlling your access to resources. Digital identities are being implemented simultaneously, not as a convenience, but as a prerequisite for participating in this new system. Without verified digital identity, you will not have access to CBDCs. Without CBDCs, you won't have access to anything, from food to healthcare. This is the literal fulfillment of the brand system, where no one can buy or sell without submitting. The scary thing is that all of this is happening in plain sight, disguised as innovation, and progress. The same people who would question a microchip under their skin are enthusiastically embracing digital wallets on their smartphones that fulfill exactly the same function, creating a system where your participation in the economy depends on your submission to the system. Have you ever noticed how certain financial apps suggest behaviors, rewarding certain purchases and penalizing others? This is just the beginning, a gentle form of psychological conditioning to prepare you for a system where there will be no suggestions, only commands. Is something inside you sounding an alarm as you listen to these revelations? Have you noticed the first manifestations of this control system in your daily life? Share in the comments a personal experience in which you felt this increase in digital control over your finances. The figure of Donald Trump evokes polarized reactions like few leaders in modern history. For millions of Americans and conservative Christians around the world, he represents a bulwark against globalism, a defender of traditional values, a warrior fighting the deep state and forces seeking to establish the new world order. For millions more, he is a dangerous demagogue whose policies fuel divisions and destabilize the global order. What if both perspectives are simultaneously right and wrong? What if Trump's role on the prophetic chessboard is infinitely more complex than any conventional political analysis could capture? What few know about Trump's true motivations will completely change their perception of the last few years. Look beyond the inflammatory rhetoric and sensational headlines. Notice the patterns in your actions, not just your words. When Trump started the trade war with China, was he actually fighting globalization, or have their actions paradoxically accelerated the collapse of the traditional financial system, setting the stage for something new? Let's look at it objectively. Trump's tariffs triggered a series of events that led to the fragmentation of global supply chains, unprecedented global inflation, and the dramatic acceleration of centralized digital financial systems. Exactly the same effects that would be needed to implement a new global economic system. The question is not whether Trump is right or wrong. The question is, does he understand the role he is playing in the prophetic unfolding? Is he being used as a tool to achieve ends that he himself may not fully understand? The prophetic texts indicate that in the last days a charismatic figure would emerge who would divide the world, someone seen by many as a defender of the truth, but whose actions, intentionally or not, would pave the way for the final system. 2 Thessalonians 2:11 mentions a strong deception that would come upon the world. Could Trump be part of this deception? Not because he is deliberately evil, but because his role in the divine plan is more complex than either side of the political spectrum can understand? Consider the facts. During his presidency, we have seen the unprecedented acceleration of surveillance technologies, biometric identification, and digital monetary systems, the same systems that will form the infrastructure of the ultimate economic control described in Revelation. His trade policies, although presented as protectionist, had the effect of destabilizing the dollar system and accelerating the development of centralized digital alternatives. The great irony is that many of those who most fear the mark of the beast system fervently support a leader whose policies are, objectively, accelerating its implementation. This is not a criticism of Trump or his supporters. It is an acknowledgement of the cunning of the prophesied deception which would confuse even the elect if possible. Trump may well be sincere in his intentions to fight globalism. The question is not his sincerity, but whether he understands the larger forces at play and how his actions fit into the prophetic timetable. Leaders throughout history have often served divine purposes without fully understanding their role. Think of Cyrus of Persia, called anointed by God, even though he was a pagan king. Perhaps Trump's role is more semantic than substantive. Perhaps its function in the divine plan is precisely to create division and destabilization, the necessary conditions for the implementation of the final system, the chaos that precedes a new order, the destruction that must occur before reconstruction. This puts his followers in a deeply uncomfortable position. Support for Trump is not necessarily wrong in worldly terms, but this support needs to be tempered with deeper spiritual discernment that recognizes the divine plan beyond partisan politics. The danger comes when we confuse a temporal leader with a spiritual savior. The signs are everywhere for those who have eyes to see. The final system requires specific conditions for its implementation: global economic instability, breakdown of trust in traditional institutions, deep social divisions, fear of the future. These are precisely the conditions that have intensified dramatically during and after the Trump presidency. This does not make him the villain of the story. It may in fact make him a tragic figure, someone who genuinely believes he is fighting evil forces without realizing how his actions ultimately serve the advancement of the prophetic calendar. Or perhaps he fully understands his role, and his divisive words are precisely calculated to create the necessary environment for what is to come. Do you consider yourself someone who sees beyond superficial political divisions? Who can discern prophetic patterns unfolding, regardless of partisan preferences? Write discernment in the comments if you are committed to the truth above temporal political alliances. The real decisions that determine your future are not made in parliaments or congresses. This is the illusion they sell us daily. The reality is much deeper and more disturbing. While we follow the public clashes between national leaders and their fiery statements about tariffs and economic sanctions, a much more restricted and powerful group orchestrates the real movements that will completely transform the world system in the coming years. Have you ever wondered why, despite all the apparent disagreements among global elites, certain agendas advance inexorably, regardless of who is in power? The movement toward digital identities, central bank-controlled currencies, and financial surveillance systems continues to advance in both democratic countries and authoritarian regimes. This is no coincidence. There are concrete, verifiable connections between top global leaders and organizations that transcend national borders. The Bilderberg Group, the World Economic Forum, the Bank for International Settlements, and the Council on Foreign Relations are not social clubs. They are true centers of global policymaking, where decisions are made years before they are publicly implemented by elected representatives. Internal documents from the World Economic Forum explicitly describe the US-China trade war as an opportunity for restructuring and a necessary catalyst for the implementation of what they call stakeholder capitalism, a euphemism for a centralized economic system with unprecedented control over every aspect of human life. I'm risking a lot by sharing this with you, but I feel it's my obligation to warn you. These groups don't hide their intentions. They publish them openly in white papers, annual reports, and books. Klaus Schwab, founder of the World Economic Forum, has explicitly stated that the global economic crisis would be the perfect vehicle to implement what he calls the Great Reset, a term that sounds positive until you understand its full implications. The scariest thing is not what they are doing, but how they are managing to do it all in the open. Their plans are published, their goals are declared, their meetings are announced, and yet most people never connect the dots or question the official narrative. It's the perfect deception, hiding the truth right in front of everyone's eyes. 1. Telling example. In 2019, the Bank for International Settlements published a document titled The Monetary System of the Future, detailing exactly how central bank digital currencies would replace physical cash, allowing granular control over all transactions. Less than a year later, as if by coincidence, the pandemic dramatically accelerated the abandonment of physical money exactly as the document predicted. The links between these organizations are not theoretical, they are documented and verifiable. The same names appear repeatedly on boards, the same corporations finance key initiatives, the same foundations promote identical agendas in different countries. The illusion of political choice is maintained while the underlying agenda continually advances. Note how the language of these groups has evolved in recent years. Terms like stakeholder capitalism, impact economy, financial inclusion, and sustainability are repeated like mantras, creating a coded language that sounds positive while masking its true goals: centralization of power, elimination of financial privacy, and total control over resources. The strategy is brilliant in its simplicity. Create problems, like a global trade war, that require predetermined solutions, like a new centralized financial system. People, pressured by the resulting economic instability, will accept solutions they would normally reject simply to regain some sense of normalcy and security. Perhaps the most telling example of this manipulation is the IMF's 2018 report titled Cashing In: How to Make the Decline of Cash a Public Policy Success, which explicitly outlined strategies for overcoming public resistance to the elimination of physical cash. This document was published months before Trump's first tariffs against China, setting the stage for what came next. These organizations do not see themselves as villains. Many genuinely believe they are working for the greater good. This is the most disturbing aspect. The final system prophesied in the Bible will not be implemented by obviously evil figures, but by well-intentioned technocrats who believe they are saving the world through centralized control and total surveillance. Now, consider the perfect timing. Just when these organizations were ready to implement their new financial system, a global conflict arises between the world's two largest economies, creating exactly the conditions necessary for its acceptance. Could it be mere coincidence? Or are we witnessing the meticulous execution of a plan established decades ago? The public faces of national leaders are just pieces on a much larger board. They come and go, while the invisible structures of power remain, patiently advancing toward an ultimate goal that transcends election cycles and partisan politics. Is this revelation touching something deep inside you? Do you feel like you've always suspected these connections, even though you can't clearly articulate them? Share in the comments which of these global organizations you believe has the most influence on the implementation of this final system. To fully understand China's role in the prophetic calendar, we must first overcome the limitations of westernized interpretations of Scripture. For centuries, Western theologians have analyzed biblical prophecies through a Eurocentric lens, ignoring the deeper meaning of Eastern symbols and references contained in sacred texts. This limited perspective has prevented us from recognizing China's central role in the events of recent days. The prophetic texts of Ezekiel, Daniel, and Revelation contain specific references to an Eastern power that would rise in the last days, exerting unprecedented economic and military influence. Ezekiel 38 mentions Gog of the land of Magog, prince and leader of Meshech and Tubal, territories that, according to recent linguistic and archaeological studies, correspond to the regions of Central and East Asia that today include part of modern China. Most revealing, however, is the symbolism of the dragon in Revelation. While traditional interpretations see the dragon exclusively as representing Satan, the text allows for a dual understanding where the dragon also represents a specific geopolitical entity. It is impossible to ignore that China has culturally identified itself as the dragon nation for thousands of years. Its calendar, mythology, and national identity are intrinsically linked to the symbolism of the dragon, the same symbol that Revelation places at the center of the final events. Revelation 16:12 specifically mentions the kings of the East and how the Euphrates would dry up to prepare their way. This verse takes on profound meaning when we look at modern China's Belt and Road Initiative, literally a road to the kings of the East that passes through precisely the regions described in the prophecy, including the territory of the ancient Euphrates. Respected biblical scholars, such as Dr. David, Jeremiah, and Joel Richardson, have identified these connections, highlighting how the geopolitical and economic characteristics of modern China accurately correspond to prophetic descriptions of the latter-day Eastern power. Not by accident, but by divine design, China emerged as a global power exactly at the historical moment predicted by the prophecies. Time to understand this connection is quickly running out. China is not just another player on the geopolitical stage, it fulfills a specific, prophetic function by challenging Western economic hegemony, creating the conditions necessary for the transition to the final economic system described in Revelation 13. Look at the historical evidence. Over the past 40 years, we have witnessed China's meteoric rise from impoverished nation to economic and technological superpower, exactly the period when prophecies indicate final preparations for the brand system would begin. Its economy has grown 90-fold since 1978, a phenomenon unprecedented in human history that defies purely economic explanations. Even more significant is China's pioneering role in the development of state-owned digital currencies. The digital yuan was the first central bank digital currency implemented by a major global economy, an exact prototype of the monetary system described in Revelation, where all transactions are centrally monitored and controlled. This is not a random development, but the precise fulfillment of a predetermined prophetic role. China's social credit initiative also prefigures with frightening precision the system of compliance-based economic control described in the prophecies, a system where access to essential resources depends on government approval, just like the brand system, where no one can buy or sell without compliance. Many misinterpret the US-China conflict as a traditional battle between superpowers. In reality, it is the prophetic mechanism by which the current global economic system is being dismantled to make way for the new. Think about it. US-China tariffs and sanctions created precisely the conditions that would make a new global monetary system necessary and acceptable, not by coincidence, but by divine design. Revelation 18 describes the fall of Babylon, the dominant global economic system, and how the merchants of the earth would mourn its destruction. We are witnessing the beginning of this collapse through the US-China trade war. The dollar system that dominated global trade for decades is being systematically weakened, paving the way for its eventual replacement. Daniel's prophecy about the statue with feet of iron mixed with clay, Daniel 2, takes on new meaning when viewed through this lens. The final empire would have the strength of iron, centralized technological control, but the fragility of clay, internal divisions that would make it unstable. This perfectly describes the emerging global system, technologically powerful, but geopolitically fragmented between powers like the US and China. The most extraordinary thing is that China's prophetic function does not require its leaders to be consciously evil. They are simply fulfilling their divinely appointed role on the eschatological plane, establishing the necessary conditions for the final events. Like the Pharaoh of Exodus, they are instruments of divine purpose, regardless of their own intentions. The US-China trade war is not the final conflict in itself. It is the necessary prelude, the catalyst that accelerates the transition to the prophesied true system. China is not the ultimate villain of the prophetic narrative, but a crucial actor in the unfolding of the divine plan, setting the stage for the true spiritual battle to come. Does this revelation awaken a deep spiritual recognition in you? As if something inside you has always known that current global events have far greater prophetic significance. Type "awakened" in the comments if these connections are illuminating your understanding of the times in which we live. We are witnessing a deliberately orchestrated global economic collapse. This is not a speculative conspiracy theory. It is an inescapable conclusion based on verifiable facts, historical patterns, and accurate alignment with biblical prophecy. The trade conflict between the US and China is just the visible catalyst of a much deeper and premeditated systemic transformation. Notice the pattern clearly. Each new round of tariffs and counter-tariffs between the world's two largest economies not only harms global trade, it systematically destabilizes the international financial architecture built after World War II. This destruction is not an accidental side effect. It is a necessary precondition for implementing the new global economic system accurately described in biblical prophecy. All the pieces of the prophetic puzzle are falling into place with mathematical precision. The texts of Daniel, Ezekiel, and Revelation describe a specific sequence of events that would precede the implementation of the final system: global economic fragmentation, collapse of the dominant monetary system, emergence of a challenging Eastern power, and finally, the implementation of a single system where no one could buy or sell without conformity. This prophetic consistency transcends coincidences. We are seeing each of these conditions manifest sequentially and precisely at the predicted time. The 10 kings mentioned in Revelation 17:12-13, who are of one mind and will hand over their power and authority to the beast, find direct parallels in the supranational economic structures that are emerging from the current crisis. Entities that transcend national borders and exercise centralized economic authority. The destruction of the current system is not chaotic, it is methodical and sequential. First, the systematic weakening of the dollar as a reserve currency through trade conflict. Second, the fragmentation of global supply chains creating scarcity and dependency. Third, the introduction of centralized digital solutions to the very problems they create. Finally, public acceptance of a new system of total control as the only viable alternative to chaos. The implementation of this plan requires specific psychological conditions in the global population. Fear, economic uncertainty, and a sense of constant instability are not side effects of the trade war. They are necessary psychological prerequisites for accepting solutions that, in normal times would be rejected as intrusive and too controlled. What you do with this information in the coming weeks may determine your destiny, not just economic, but spiritual. The choices you make now, while the system is still in transition, will define your position when the final system is fully implemented. Once consolidated, the available options will be drastically reduced. The prophecies of Revelation 13 and 14 present a clear binary choice. Accept the economic system of the beast or be excluded from it completely. There will be no middle ground, no gray area, no possibility of partial participation. This imminent reality demands immediate spiritual preparation and practice. Once you understand this, you only have two paths: ignore it and suffer the consequences, or prepare yourself for what is to come. Preparation isn't just about stocking up on supplies or seeking financial independence, although these practical steps are prudent. True preparation is spiritual, understanding the nature of the system that is emerging and taking a conscious stand against it, regardless of the personal cost. The emerging system will have specific identifiable characteristics. It will be digital, centralized, intrinsically linked to personal identity, and will make it impossible to participate in the economy without full compliance. We already see prototypes of this system in central bank digital currencies, global biometric identification systems, and the merging of financial, medical, and social data into unified platforms. Notice how during the US-China trade war, while public attention was focused on tariffs and retaliations, the real transformation was quietly occurring. The accelerated implementation of financial surveillance infrastructure, the systematic elimination of physical cash, the normalization of digital controls over transactions, and the introduction of health passports that set the precedent for compliance-based access conditioning. The trade war isn't really about trade, it's about dismantling the old system to build the new on its ruins. Both Washington and Beijing, despite their apparent opposition, are advancing complementary aspects of the same ultimate system: digitized social control, total economic surveillance, the elimination of financial privacy, and unprecedented centralization of power. Most impressively, this system is being built with the willing cooperation of billions of people who embrace each new control technology for the convenience it offers, without recognizing the long-term implications. The prophetic deception is so sophisticated that many will not just accept the final system, they will passionately defend it as necessary and beneficial. Biblical prophecies were not given just to inform, but to prepare. Knowing what is coming should not produce paralyzing fear, but active discernment and intentional preparation. The destruction of the current economic system through the US-China trade war is just the prelude to the true spiritual test to come. Everything that has been revealed today is just the surface of a much deeper truth. The connections between the US-China trade war and biblical prophecy extend far beyond what we were able to explore in this video. What you have witnessed here is not just information, it is a spiritual awakening that very few people will have the privilege of experiencing. You are now part of a select group of people who see beyond the curtain of illusions. His spiritual insight placed him in a unique position at this critical moment in human history. This revelation did not come to you by accident. You were divinely chosen to receive this knowledge right now. Like this video and subscribe to the channel immediately to connect with thousands of other awakened people who are joining this movement of revealed truth. The wisdom you received today awakens profound questions about your own role in these prophetic times. Your spirit recognizes the truth of these revelations in a way that transcends the intellect. This inner recognition is your spiritual compass, guiding you through the tumultuous events that are unfolding. Share in the comments which aspect of this revelation most deeply touched your spirit. Your unique perspective will empower others who are also awakening. What you saw today is just the beginning. There is an even more impactful revelation waiting for you. Information so powerful that it will completely transform your understanding of prophetic events. The full truth about the system being implemented right now is more surprising and urgent than you might think. Click on the next video to discover the final revelation that very few people in the world will have access to.